lot of progress. We have more visibility, we have better polling, we have a lot of culture change, we have more legal rights, and at the same time, as we all know, we're in the midst of a political nightmare. We have the Trump administration, the overt racism we're seeing every day, changes in the Supreme Court, and the 2020 elections are right around the corner. So the results of that are incredibly important to our community. And we thought it would be a nice time, given all of this, that we invite two heroes of our LGBTQ movement to reflect on a few things. Looking at when they came into the movement, what things were like at that time, kind of an assessment and reflection on where we are right now, and dreams and aspirations and hopes for the future, maybe some fears too. So I am really, really happy to have my friends up here. Mara Kiesling is the founder and executive director of the National Center for Transgender Equality. Since 2003, she has led efforts that have won significant advances and is one of the nation's leading voices for transgender equality. Mara is regularly quoted in all the major media. She is a proud Pennsylvanian, received her bachelor's degree from Pennsylvania State University, and did graduate work at Harvard. And we also have Paul Kawada, the executive director of...
No one's applauding, come on!
Paul Kawada has been at NMAC for more than 30 years. He's amazing. The mission of NMAC, the National Minority AIDS Council, is to lead with race to urgently fight for health equity and racial justice to end the HIV epidemic. Amazing goal. NMAC represents a coalition of 3,000 faith-based and community-based organizations, as well as HIV service organizations, advocating for delivering HIV services in communities of color nationwide. So I'm going to start with Mara. And Mara, will you tell us something about when you came into the movement, when that was, what were the key issues in the LGBTQ movement and the trans movement specifically when you started 20 years ago?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And first of all, thank you for having me here. Thank you for all the work the Equality Federation does. And thank you for allowing me to bring my grandmother's chair so that I would be comfortable. Yeah, I've been kicking around the movement for about 20 years. We founded NCPE almost 17 years ago now. And everything's changed since then. At the time, the issues were awfully similar to what they were now, but the first was being able to use our voice. NCP was started as trans people started being able to build more than localized communities with the internet. We all knew we needed a voice in Washington. The Americans with Disabilities Act had happened a few years earlier in a way that was totally disrespectful to trans people. We were not part of the conversation. Nobody spoke up for us, let alone nobody allowed us to speak up. And we needed to be able to find our voice and use our voice. And how much it's changed in 20 years is actually remarkable. I mean, some people have probably heard me say this, but in 2001, I was meeting with the liberal Democrat minority leader of the Pennsylvania State Senate, and we were trying to get gender identity into a bill with sex orientation only, and he said, no, you lose all the Democrats. By the way, like 6 weeks later, we won with all the Democrats and 12 of the Republicans. But at first he said, no, you lose all the Democrats, and he looked at me, and I was the only trans person in the delegation. He said, but Mara, look at the bright side. A couple of years ago, I wouldn't have let you in my office. And that sounds harsh, but it is absolutely how it was. And in fact, in 2004, I was on Senator John Kerry was the Democratic nominee for president, and I was on his LGBT advisory fundraising thing. And we found out well into the campaign that anytime the senator was going to be somewhere, his staff made sure I wasn't, because they didn't want to risk having Senator's picture taken with a trans person. That was 15 years ago, and now that's just not a thing. You know, every Democratic presidential candidate and some of the Republican candidates would want to be seen with trans people, would want to speak out in support of trans people, and that has been because we were able to find our voice. So without talking about the, and by the way, there was no LGBT, there was barely an LGBT movement at the time, and that was one of the first things we had to work on, was causing there to be an actual legitimate LGBT movement, not just a gay rights movement.
What was your role in, or what did you see the role in bringing those movements together? What were the issues?
Well, you know, it wasn't open hostility to trans people so much as it was kind of open disregard for trans people. And we're trying to get our thing, and you're stopping, you're getting in our way. And that was kind of short-sighted and unnecessary. And we had to really step back and explain to people that, you know, all queer people have always had the same history, the same shared spaces and safe spaces, the same enemies and the same friends. And by the way, our policy agendas were almost identical. Everything that was a gay policy priority was a trans policy priority. And then we had some extra ones like access to healthcare, ID documents and stuff. But there wasn't a gay policy issue that wasn't also a trans issue. Even marriage was very much a trans issue in a lot of ways. And we just had to show that, and we also had to show that we were willing to stand up with other people as we were asking them to stand up for us.
Thanks. So Paul, you've been with NMAC for maybe longer than anybody in the movement has been with their organization. And going back to then, and when you started your HIV/AIDS activism, what was the scene? What was the situation? What was the setting at that time? And what year was it?
What year was it? So, I have
Can everybody hear?
Can you all hear me? Louder? Okay, we'll put it up here. So, I've been in my job for 30 years. Nobody is in their job for 30 years anymore. I feel at some level like I'm an anachronism, and I've kind of aged out. I moved to Washington in 1985 to fight an epidemic. I left my family and our kids. I moved because my partner was sick, and I wanted to get to the front of the line to make sure that if there was a cure, he could find it and he could be a part of it. He died in 2002, right before, no, excuse me, 1992, right before we found protease inhibitors. It was personal, and I was a kid, and I get to a city that it was the start of Reagan's second term, and it snowed, and I remember crying and thinking, what the fuck have I done to myself? Fighting an epidemic back then is almost undescribable. And to those of us, you know, I'm part of a generation of an LGBT community who lived through a Holocaust, who lived through something that is almost unimaginable now. I mean, we did a conference one year, and all the waiters wore yellow gloves, yellow rubber gloves that went up to their elbows as they served us dinner. I mean, you can't imagine kind of what the discrimination and what the stigma was at that time. And so I feel blessed to have lived through it, but also sad, because there are so many people who should be here in this room, who should be here with all of you. And what I want you all to know is that we stand on the shoulders of some amazing heroes and sheroes. we stand on the shoulders of people who literally gave their lives for this work. And so I want to thank you for inviting me. But more importantly, I want to thank all of you. You know, it is not an easy life to fight for justice. It is not an easy life to try to change the world. It is not an easy life to say that my voice matters. And so I want you to know how much we appreciate it and how much we need each and every one of your voices, because this is an evil time we're in. This last week alone was extraordinary. I've never seen anything like it. And as I'm a third generation American, and my parents were interned in the camps during World War II. And I look at what's happening and I watch history repeating itself in ways that make me so afraid. And that is why your leadership and your voice is so important. And because if there was ever a moment when we need people to stand up for each other, this is that moment.
The HIV movements and the LGBTQ movements sort of went separate ways. There were a lot of reasons. There were funding issues and politics issues and all kinds of other things. But can you say something about how that happened and how we've been working over the last few years to really figure out ways to bring our movements back together, and what the importance of that coming together is?
We're in a moment in the epidemic where we can end the HIV epidemic in America. But it's not going to happen if we stay separate. HIV and the LGBTQ movement separated. I'm going to say something that's probably going to piss some people off. Excuse me. When white gay men found treatment, they decided that they wanted to get married next. And they took the movement in a very different way. And they left people living with HIV to fend for themselves. And it was extraordinarily painful to watch and extraordinarily painful to experience. Not because I understood why they did that, because they were tired of HIV. They had been fighting it for years and years, and they had seen so many of their friends die, and they wanted a new issue, and I totally get that. But we're at this moment where we can end this, but we can't do it alone. And if there was ever an opportunity, and part of why I came to this meeting was because I wanted to ask you to join us. I came to this meeting to say, it's time to come back, to do this together, to end an epidemic. I mean, it is an extraordinary thing to be able to think about the fact that we have the science to be able to end an epidemic. We have the science to be able to stop new infections from happening. But it's going to take all of our leadership. And there is a very specific role for the Federation, and I'll talk about it later, but please know that this is very intentional. And I am here on behalf of a community saying, we got to get it together.
So Mara, after all these 20 years, what are some of the key accomplishments you think we have made, and what are some of the missed opportunities in terms of things that we could have been doing that we haven't done as we start next looking to the future?
Well, so much has changed. 2 weeks ago at NCT, we were having our full staff meeting, and it happened to be the 10th anniversary month of our policy director, Harper Jean Tobin, coming to work at NCT. And Harper Jean's just a remarkable policy maker and policy leader. And Harper Jean had actually sat down and made a list of the things that had happened in the 10 years since she came. And it blew my mind. I mean, things that we weren't even thinking about then, like gender neutral markers on identification. And when in 20 years ago, there were not insurance companies that would cover anything trans-related. In fact, if you were trans, everything about you was trans-related. I think one of the legal groups here had a woman who came to them. She was playing softball and broke her arm. Had really good work insurance, and then a couple weeks later she got a bill for whatever, $5,000 or $10,000, and the insurance company said, well, it was trans-related, so it's excluded. And she said, it wasn't trans-related, I was playing softball. And they said, yes, but you were on a women's softball team, which you wouldn't have been if you weren't trans. So therefore it isn't covered. But that's not that surprising 20 years ago. It really isn't. All that stuff has changed. I have to say, so I'm working now on a book, and I'm looking at the pivot moments, and one of them was 2001 and 2002 when the Transgender Law Center, TELDEF, Civil Rights Law Project, NCTE, the Trans Rights Project at the Task Force, and probably other groups all started all at once. That was actually a really, really important moment for the trans policy movement and the trans visibility movement. And then 2007 was another pivot point when there was some shenanigans in Congress, and we led an effort to not take trans people out of the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, which we had just fought 20 years to get into. And that was a real tough moment. If I could not answer your question for a second and say the hardest thing in my activist career, the thing I hated the most, the thing that's worn me down the most, the thing that's most, the times when you say, God, I just can't do this anymore, it has always been about fighting with friends. It's been about getting up in the face and having other people get in the face, and whether it's organization to organization, or coworker, or movement to movement, it is just, it's just fucking unbearable, unnecessary. I think it's unnecessary, maybe it is necessary. But had to do that then, knowing what the prize was, made it worth it, but it was still really, really hard. And that was an important pivot point, because that's when there was an LGBT movement. That's when we all knew there was no going back from that. And at that time, by the way, we knew we were going to lose that moment. And we kept saying to each other, those handful of us who were doing it, we're not playing for this year, we're playing for all the years after this year. And it looked like we lost that year to some people, but it was just this sort of amazing thing. And having these trans organizations start meant that there were people focusing on things that I don't even know if today the LGBT groups would have gotten around to. Things like ID documents, insurance coverage, and not to take away anything from the LGBT groups. I'll say something really controversial and really piss people off. But I actually think one of the most significant things that's happened for trans health, probably the most significant thing that's happened to trans health in the last 30 years, was HRC's corporate equality address. By HRC putting trans health on the thing, these big corporations started giving health care, they started insisting the insurance companies, and then the smaller companies started getting it. And, so I really don't want to, and most of our legal victories have been LGBT groups, and that's been important. So the fight to create an LGBT movement has been super significant. I think we have a little correction to do there, because I think it's almost gone a little bit too far. We can talk about that another time. But I mean, those are some of some of the really important things, and I'm going back a little ways. I'm not talking about the more immediate things. And I think, but by the way, also, I would just say the next one was the Obama administration. When there's a decent human being in the White House, once again, we as a movement will know how to do this. But I don't think most people know that in 2009, when the Obama administration started, there was almost not a single person in the LGBT movement who was an expert in federal administrative advocacy. We made it up, and we were wrong on a bunch of things, but we got it right fast, we got it right together, we advocated fiercely together, and got a lot done with really great partnerships. And when there's a decent human being in the White House again, we know how to do this, and we now have dozens of people among our groups who know how to do federal administrative advocacy. And we're going to know most of the people who are going into the administrative. So a lot of the people in our movement who know federal administrative advocacy are going to be in the government. And they're going to be doing it from inside. And we're just going to just clean up and fix a lot of this bullshit that this president's done.
Looking forward to that. So Paul, one of the things that is really notable is that now that we have the medical way to stop the epidemic, there are still populations in our country, particularly in the South, that don't have access and are not getting the treatment that they need. Can you say something about that sort of what's happening demographically, and what are some of the access issues?
Absolutely, but before I do that, Brian, are you still here? Stand up, Brian. Where are you? He laughed. I was going to say, when you want to talk about someone who worked inside the Obama White House, who really helped to make a difference for all of us, and who learned about the federal process, it really was Brian Bond. So thank you, Brian. This is what I know. I know that the majority of people living with HIV are gay men. I know that the majority of gay men living with HIV are African American. I know the majority of African American gay men living with HIV are under 30. And I know that the majority of under 30 African, and that half of black gay men will get HIV before they die. And that is unacceptable. And the challenge in front of us is that there is science that can prevent it. There is science called PrEP and U=U that can save people's lives. But we don't necessarily, because of years of stigma, discrimination, because of fear of the medical infrastructure in America, have equal access to health care. And part of the opportunity of ending the epidemic is that it requires access to health care to work. And so in our effort and in our march to address the epidemic, we also get to address some of the core inequities in our society. And for us as a community, both as the HIV community and as the LGBTQ community, we have the opportunity to not just fight for equality, but to fight for racial justice. And justice looks very different from equality. And I think it's important for us to understand the distinction. Equality is about all of us getting the same. Justice is about us helping people who don't have the same. And it is important to remember that we want everyone, so we fight for health equity because we want everyone to have the same access to health care. but we fight for racial justice because we understand that it's not an equal world out there. And that some communities are going to need more help than others. But if you fight for justice, you fight for everyone.
Thank you. That is worthy of an applause moment if I ever heard it. So, Paul, one of the things I think I was so struck by a number of years ago when you first started talking about the fact that we have now the opportunity to end the epidemic in our lifetimes. And that was so momentous to really hear that. I also lived in the Castro all through the 80s, through the entire beginning of the HIV crisis. And it's an incredibly traumatic experience for the whole community. And the idea that we can actually end the epidemic in our lifetimes is really amazing. And I see you sort of draw that chart. Can you just tell us first how we're going to end the epidemic in our lifetimes, and two, the very specific ask of this community, of all of us, about what our role can be in doing that?
This is my dramatic stand-up moment. Oh, I should do this. I mean, if you're going to be gay, you're going to be fabulously gay. I came here with a mission, and there is a task in ending the epidemic that the Federation is uniquely qualified for, and that I came to ask for your support. This fall, we will begin building plans in 57 jurisdictions to end the epidemic. But the truth about it is that those plans need the support of state and local elected officials to be fully implemented. And the HIV community doesn't have the infrastructure that the Federation does with those communities to be able to bring on the elected officials and to get their support in building these plans. And so I'm here today to ask all of the federations from the 57 jurisdictions to stand up and be counted with us. I'm here today to say to you that you can end the epidemic in your lifetime if you stand up now and if you get the elected officials in your community involved. And that this is not something that the HIV community has the capacity to do. And so it is going to be uniquely your role, and we want to help you do it. And we will do whatever we need to do, but this is a unique role that only the Federation can do. And so I hope, will you stand with me? So that was really easy to stand up now. Wait till you get this time up from Rebecca later. I will be actually giving a memo to Rebecca telling her what we'd like you all to do. But I know that's who we are. We are good people. We're people who want to change the world. And that's why I knew it was a no-brainer to come here and ask you that. Because at the end of the day, all of our, whether we're fighting for HIV, whether we're fighting for trans, whether we're fighting for racial justice, whatever we're fighting to make a better world. And standing together makes us so much stronger. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for all that you do, but even more importantly, thank you for what you're going to be doing in the future. Because we're going to change the world, folks. And we're going to make a difference. And we're going to end an epidemic. So thank you.
Thanks, Paul. And that is one of the most hopeful things hear it repeated enough. So Mara, let's, as we sort of wind down, as you look to the future, so here we are today, we've made some real progress, but we also have a lot of struggles. If you were to just aspirationally think about what would trans liberation look like, what would LGBTQ success look like in the future? Like, what are your goals and aspirations, and for the movement and for yourself?
So it's really interesting. Very uniquely here, I know I'm not the oldest person on the stage.
Fuck you.
So I actually happen to know that all three of us are basically around the same age. And I do want to point out, while I do have my ideas and my aspirations, that's where the future's going to be, it isn't going to be here. And I know we know that, and so I want to say that.
That's why they gave us these chairs.
But I didn't answer part of your question before, and I want to ask it. I want to answer it now about the future. It's about missed opportunities. I want us to. I want us moving forward to not miss the opportunities, to not miss this opportunity that Paul was just talking about. It's so literally life-saving, so possible to do, really hard work, but really possible to do. I don't want us to blow the opportunity of getting this idiot out of the White House. I want to have conversations about whether it should be Medicaid for all, or government-sponsored health care, or Obamacare being fixed. I want to have those fights. I want to have those conversations. But I want to have them with decent people in charge of the policies. I want to get decent people. I'm trying to avoid wandering too far from C3 land here. But the single most important thing, in my opinion, for trans people in the next year and a half is beating Donald Trump. And that is a missed opportunity if we blow it, and there are a lot of people who think we are going to blow it. And I don't have an opinion about that yet. But if we decide that purity politics is more important than politics, we will miss that opportunity. If we decide that... And I want us to keep our eye on the prize. I experienced a real sort of shocking thing that really pissed me off a couple months ago. I was in a congressional hearing, and this is the old person saying, "Get off my fucking yard." So I was at a congressional hearing on the trans-military ban, and the Republican ranking member of this House Armed Services Committee was, or is, a general in the Army Reserve or the Army National Guard. I actually don't know the difference. And he was so respectful to the trans service members, and he was saying things like, "You people who testified, I would have you in my troop." You can tell I'm not very fluent. You could be in my command anytime because you're the kind of people who are here to do your job and you're smart. And he was so respectful. He did everything right. And afterwards, a trans-identified reporter came up to me and said, "What did you think about," I think his name is Kelly, "what did you think about what Representative Kelly said?" And I said, "I thought it was really amazing. He's never going to vote with us, but he's starting to get there, and he gets this issue, and he feels like he's in a bad political place, but maybe we can win on him." And this person said, no. I mean, he used transgender as a noun. And I was just like, really? That's what you fucking got out of it? Right? You got out of it that he misused a word. Now, words are important. I don't mean that. But for gosh sakes, let's keep our eyes on the prize, right? If this super influential person who is against us is moving our direction, okay, let's embrace him. Let's win him the rest of the way over. Let's leverage him. Let's not say, "Fuck you, you got our magic words wrong." Right? And I know that's sort of hard to hear sometimes for trans people, but that's not the prize. The prize isn't some congressman from Louisiana, getting a word right. The prize is that congressman from Louisiana becoming our friend and in doing things to help us, or doing things not to hurt us would be a good start. So I want us to look at every opportunity. I want us to think, how do we, there's this inane conversation we have, and I have sometimes too, which is, what is more important? Total disruption or incrementalism? Okay, it's a dumb fight. It is a dumb fight because we need both. We need to be looking all the time for the major change, the major disruption. And while that's happening, the change we can make and the change we all have made together so well has been mostly incremental, not always incremental. But let's do the incremental stuff and let's look for the big changes, and let's not get on each other because somebody just got a little thing done and they didn't get a big enough thing done. And let's just keep fighting. And then the last thing I want to say is, I was at a philanthropy conference and on a panel like this, but it was more about 25 years in the future, what will it be like? And this friend of mine came up and said, I'm a futurist. Can we talk about this? And I was like, sure. It's just before I went on. And I said, what do you think the future's going to be like? And he said, honestly, so get ready. And I said, yes. And he said, I think it's going to be Lord of the Flies, Mad Max, Waterworld. And the purpose of the LGBT movement should be to sprint, to win as close to full recognition as possible, as quickly as possible. Because when the shitstorm starts, the people who are not fully accepted are going to be the ones that are most hurt the fastest. They're the ones who are going to be beaten. They're the ones who are, and I was just like, holy fuck. I'm not a pessimist quite like that. Although I think, if he had told me that 15 years ago, I might have never talked to him again. I would have been like, oh man, he's lost it. He's now just, whatever, a cranker. But, now you're just like, yeah, that's one way it could go. And I don't think it'll go that way. I don't think it has to go that way. And I'm really optimistic. And my aspiration is for us to all be optimistic. Right? Not naive optimism, but fierce optimism. Right? Remember, pessimism is acceptance. Pessimism is obedience. Optimism is how we fight. If you are not optimism, please get out of the optimist's way. We have to be optimistic. We have to be optimistic for all of us. We cannot be glass half full or glass half empty people. We have to be, this is the only goddamn glass we have. Let's figure out how to do this. Let's figure out how to fill up that glass, and when it's full, let's share it. And when it's empty, let's figure it out again. And sometimes when Donald J. Trump gets elected president, let's smash the glass on a bar and go outside for a fight. But let's always know that we are the people who stood up with no power, no voice, and stood up to the HIV epidemic in the 80s. We are the ones in the 60s with nothing, who some of us were brave, not me, some of us were super brave enough to come out at a time that was incredibly dangerous. We're the people who were trans people, who mostly grew up alone in the 60s and 70s thinking we were the only goddamn trans person in the world. And we all got together and we moved forward together. We can be optimistic, we can keep our eyes on the prize, we cannot let opportunities like ending the HIV epidemic go by. But we can do this if we do it together, if we're smart, if we're strategic, if we're fighting, and if we're together. Thank you.